Welcome to BEMA's Virtual Convention 2020. Industry Insight panels are always a highlight of our convention programming, and that is no different this year. We're so excited to be able to bring you this timely discussion in a virtual format. Food manufacturing is now in the spotlight. It's an essential function. It's also in the spotlight as a secure career pathway in the job market. As many grain-based categories have seen significant spikes in demand, we've also witnessed changes to employee safety, and those changes are transforming even into a more important job description. Plant operations are evolving. Today, our panel of bakery operations leaders will describe to us how they're thriving and surviving these challenging times. To our audience, please feel free to join the conversation. The chat feature is ready for you to use. Submit your questions and your comments. And we did save some time towards the end of the discussion to try to get your questions answered. So thank you all for joining us. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with introductions and an initial question. So to our panelists today, please tell our audience your name and your company, and then we'll jump right into one of those catchphrases, new normal, and tell us one of those recent changes in your manufacturing operation that's starting to become a new normal.
Hi, Emily. Good morning. Xochitl Cruz, Bimbo Bakeries, USA. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. To answer your question, everything we do has been with the end goal of feeding America while keeping our people safe. So under that mission, part of our new normal have included some additions to our safety practices to ensure social distancing. And of course, this comes with intense education and training for everyone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Heiser with Roskam. Just as was mentioned, we've had to implement, as everyone has, a lot of different procedures to ensure the safety and wellness of our employees, the health screenings, the social distancing, extra cleaning of touch points. So I don't know that those are going to be normal forever, but obviously for the near future they will be. One other thing, Emily, really this is more of our administrative staff that's become the new normal, and we've implemented it as a family cost cutting measure. We now nobody can get a haircut without going 3 months. So because the haircut things were shut down, and we all had fun making fun of each other, with their haircuts. So
thank you.
Hello, everybody. Emily, thank you for having me be part of this panel, and to BEMA, I appreciate it very much. My name is Yianny, Caparos, president of the bakery companies, and the new norm with our business that we are going to continue to have is the sanitizing throughout the facility, numerous touch points, door handles throughout each shift, and with first and foremost having the health and safety of our employees. We will continue to operate that way.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vince Nasty, Vice President of Operations at Nation Pizza, and thank you for having me on the panel today. I think some of the new normal practices that we're focusing on, in addition to what others have discussed, is the sanitation piece, of course, health and wellness, and then now, balancing time between some days at home and some days in the office. Thinking that this new normal part of things isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you all for joining the panel today. We love to host our baker guests and bring the industry together, so we appreciate your time. I heard you talking about some that are not going away anytime soon. So considering all of the recent impact to your operations, Are you feeling like these short-term solutions are going to turn into longer-term strategies?
So I think, Emily, that the majority of the short-term practices that we have already implemented will be turning into long-term strategies. Right now, we are in the sustaining phase where current practices are still adjusting, and all of these continue to change as new regulations come into place from CDC and from other agencies. So this is a learning process every single day. So an example of this is digitalization, right? That was a short-term practices that existed and was in place before the pandemic hit. But then we have adapted relatively quick to meet our new demands, our new needs, and still remain connected with our people. But as we think long term, I think it's important that there's no question we will need to include improvements in how this digitalization is going to be faster, more effective, and is going to continue to remain connected.
Okay.
Emily, I think that was well said. I don't know that I could explain it any better. As we obviously our short-term uh, things that we put in place are still there, and I think as we learn more about how to do things better or what's more effective or less effective, we'll adjust as we go forward.
The new norm for the short term is treating the modifications as they are established. We're constantly looking and focusing on the employee comfort, and as well as the minimizing the risk for our customers to understand the importance of how well we operate and minimize the exposure, not only for our employees and their welfare and safety, but to the product we produce that goes out to the marketplace. And we will continue with that.
Our solutions are a blend of both as well. Some of the things that we're putting in place may start out as short term, but with some tweaking, they will eventually become permanent ways of doing business. A couple of things that on the top of the list are education for us, and also since we have a large temporary workforce, making sure that that piece of our business is addressed is important to us. So there will be a huge focus on that moving forward.
Okay, there is a lot going on, and I know in some previous webinars and discussions, we've heard, changes are happening almost every single day, and that's a lot to keep up with. If you looked back 90 days, what are those major changes since the end of March?
Emily, at Roskam Baking, I would say that there's been a lot of things changed, just like everywhere else or everyone else. But the way that we view employee safety has changed. Not that it has always been and always will be a priority. But one thing, in my opinion, that's changed is this pandemic has forced us to look at employee safety in a different light, in the light of how do we ensure that the things that people normally do in day to day, just being themselves, how do we make sure that those things aren't putting other people at risk, and coaching employees about the best practices, to have at home or carpooling, things like that. So I think it's really forced us to take obviously a broader and more a better view of what really keeping our employees safe means.
I
Thank you,
concur with
Brandon.
Brandon. I concur with Brandon on that. Our organization has really put the focus and priority on the employee first and foremost. We always have, and we've always had that practice, but now the attention to detail of really making sure they're comfortable and understanding that they're coming to a safe place to work and that their environment around them is safe, with the commitment they've made to come to produce fine baked products and to know that they can go home leaving a safe environment.
Thanks, Yianny. We're going to switch directions just a minute and talk about those grocery store shelves that were empty for quite a while when food demands were very high. Baking and snack markets were definitely thriving from a demand perspective. So could you give us a glimpse into adjusting to that thriving phase? And then conversely, even though your demand was tremendously high, the stress and emotions of your workforce were as well. So were there aspects of that early pandemic that felt a little bit more like surviving?
Yeah, that's a great question, Emily. I think we all saw the panic shopping, right? And it was very challenging for everyone. So as we saw that non-essential businesses started to shut down and understanding what was happening in schools, in childcare, understanding and working with our associates to ensure their safety and well-being was a learning curve for sure. It was a lot of moving pieces. As we see the entire supply chain, from one end, we have that piece of suppliers, right? Understanding the risk that we have in demand and supply from ingredients and packaging was once, and planning for any potential shortages and acting upon was one piece. In the other side, we have associates ensuring that we are supporting them and making sure we were adjusting to the new normal or to the changes that they were happening. And finally, working with the logistics and sales teams to fill those empty shelves that you were mentioning. It was a true team effort. Regarding the aspect that felt more like survival, I don't think we were in survival mode at any point of times. I think teams work together very efficiently. But I would have to say that we were learning and adapting as new CDC regulations and guidelines were issued. So I would have to give kudos to the team because the capacity of response to those, it has been incredible.
At Roskam Baking, we're fortunate that we have a very diverse business. Obviously, the food service portion of our business is in, I don't know what you call it, survival mode, but it's obviously it's down. Some of it's even halted, and we're hoping that will come back. But we'll see. We also have other parts of our business that are thriving. Those are the items that we produce that are in the grocery stores. So that's been the thriving portion of it. I look at the survival question a little bit differently, and Xochitl just mentioned it. What felt like survival for us as leaders of our company is just the changing regulations, being so certain that we knew what we were supposed to be doing and the things we would put in place, and then a day, 2 or 3 later, that not totally changed, but our eyes were opened up to how we need to look at things differently and adjust. So that part felt like we were surviving, but we obviously got through it like everybody else.
At the bakery companies, we're very fortunate to have a diverse customer base. We operate 6 facilities with a variety of different bakery products, and our wonderful leadership team did a tremendous job being flexible and nimble of balancing our production in time and need to accommodate opportunities on the retail side. Our food service business out of one facility had taken a big hit, and with the teamwork together, we reallocated some production balance to help that facility and to open up capacity in a different facility to accommodate the retail side. So we were very fortunate to be able to act that quickly and have a sharp team in place to respond. Survival to myself, the way I look at that word, is really when the pandemic hit and when being in such an unprecedented time, no one knowing what was coming forward at us, and our employees leaving their house and leaving their families to go to work, and with the unknown in front of them, and they had faith in our team and our operations to provide them a safe environment, and really just their family knowing that their spouse or child was leaving the house to go to work, and not knowing when to come home what they would have. So thankfully, we were blessed with just a few cases, and that our families are healthy and strong.
That's super important.
So people's habits, have changed for the long term. And I think frozen foods will receive a minimum of 20% growth as people will not dine out, as much as they did in the past. At our company, we were already at capacity, so squeezing out more is very difficult. You can add some hours here and there or a shift here and there, but it's all incremental compared to the demand. In terms of stress and emotions of our workforce here at Nation, when we were receiving news that our employees were testing positive, or that people were staying home out of fear, even though we did all the right things, it was a little frustrating. Especially when employees saw their fellow employees test positive, or noticed that their fellow employees haven't been to work for a while. The whole situation became real for them. And then those that did come to work, were working long hours and had to deal with short levels. But I'm pretty proud of the group, because they did a really good job and keeping up and really cared about what they were doing.
Vince, you just mentioned having to deal with associates testing positive and the impact that had. Can you tell us about that process and maybe a little bit how you managed internally?
So internally, as things started to as individuals started to test positive, we felt that it was important to communicate. And that was the best, because then rumors tend to spread quickly out on the floor. So the best thing was to communicate thoroughly, communicate accurately, and make sure that everyone understood what was happening and what the organization was doing about it.
That had to be tough. There is no leadership training course. Not that I'm aware of, for maneuvering through a global pandemic. So you've had to do a lot of just figuring it out. It sounds like a lot of your focus has been on tactical execution. So how has that impacted your bandwidth regarding planning?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any training course either, Emily. So, but I would have to say that strategic decisions have been based on our top priorities, which is serving our customers and keeping people safe. So under those two main priorities, we have driven all of our strategic decisions around, for instance, promotional activities, what are we going to do different, capital expenditures, sanitation protocols, implementation that some of us in the panel mentioned that have to adjust a little bit more. SKU rationalization was another one. And just to give you some examples, right? It has, once again, really been a team effort. Having a steady communication and interactions, even remotely, has been key and outstanding to go through these challenging times. But I would have to say strategic decisions didn't change per se, but they were always focusing on serving the market and keeping people safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish there was a training course too. I think if there was one, it'd be a little bit like that escape room experience where you've got to figure out how to get out of a dark place. But um, I tell you, you're right. We went from strategic planning to tactical execution, and we had dozens of plans and things that we were working hard on at the beginning of the year, and that just halted. It just took all of our bandwidth of our leadership team to deal with these things daily. In the beginning with the new regulations, and then as Vince mentioned, as positive cases started to occur, communicating to our employees, all the many things that come with that, really just put everything on hold. But the great news is over the last month, things are starting to get back, and we're starting to be able to have the discussions and working on the programs. It's nice to get back to our old problems and challenges.
Leadership is such a broad word in a sense, in my opinion. We're very fortunate at the bakery companies to have a partner in Arbor Investments who focuses on food and beverage, and then most recently myself being able to be part of this group that became a partner with Cordia Harrington and the bakery companies, and to have a group of leaders together to collaborate and plan ahead along with our leadership team to make progress and to do the right thing. So immediately our team got together with daily functions to lead the team and to make sure we're making progress and staying the course. So from one aspect, it's important to run the business and to understand the pandemic and where it's leading us to. And another aspect is, as I mentioned earlier, is to stay the course through this pandemic. We've been fortunate to make 2 acquisitions while we're looking at others at the same time. We have not looked at this as a deterrent to our business strategy, and continue to look forward and seeing how we can adapt to the marketplace with different product offerings and continue to operate.
So during this time,
Thanks, Yianny.
It's been a little bit of both. During this time, we've had to do both. We've had to focus on the tactical piece as well as the strategic side of things. And even though it's easy to say, during this time it's important for us to continue to do the right things and over-communicate with our employees. What we're doing about it and sharing the results, as I had mentioned earlier. Today, we continue to meet as a leadership team, even if it's over the phone. With the current situation, we meet as a group every morning, discuss the previous day's activities, and it's really allowed us to react quickly to the ever-changing events, and we're able to discuss local and federal guidance to help us tweak what we were doing in the plant and in the office.
Thanks, Vince. As I hear you all sharing your experiences, there's definitely been a focus on your workforce. What's the last few months been like with your workforce? And have you needed to make changes to your recruiting, training, and even retention policies?
Yeah. So for us, Emily, our core values are always been centered in valuing the person and being a deeply humane company. So in that regard, we have worked with our associates through these difficult times. And while some absenteeism has impacted the operations, I have to say that we were able to adjust to serve the market. About the second part of your question, we have and continue to do changes. For instance, the utilization of video calls to perform job interviews is something that we are using a lot nowadays, as well as online training. And we continue to finding what other platforms we can use to be very effective in training and better planning to ensure retention as well. For instance, we did essential pay for our workforce because, of course, they have been above and beyond serving our consumers and finding the right initiatives like succession plans, right? We keep working on those, and one-on-one follow-ups are some of the examples that we are implementing to ensuring retention at this moment.
Okay.
Emily, at Roskam, we saw the same things that were just mentioned. Um, you know, we saw a higher level of absenteeism, and actually, we had more people out due to non-COVID related issues than we did to COVID related issues. Because we needed to relax attendance policies and things like that, and we understood it. But I think in regards to our workforce, um, you know, I'm very fortunate. I came into the office every day and was able to do my normal work. But a lot of our employees, with children at home, out of schools, and they had a lot of stress that they had to deal with that normally they didn't have to deal with. And so I think that was a challenge for our workforce in our plants and in our administrative roles. And another thing in regards to recruiting, we obviously have a lot of different languages in our facilities. And in the past, we had used translators, and obviously that's without a full setup of headphones and boxes to sit in. That's hard to do and be mindful of social distancing. So we're having our first orientation, I think, next week that's 100% in Spanish. So we're really having to identify our gaps in how we recruit and train. We're also starting online training and working to become more effective at that. So I don't know to the full extent of how recruiting, training, and retention will change, but obviously it will, and we're still discovering what we need to do long term.
Thanks, Brandon.
Emily, at the bakery company, what's really been important for our workforce, and I'm very proud to actually share with you all, is the calmness our leadership team has shown at each facility. Our management team and leaders have been going in every day, and they've displayed a calm demeanor, which I think has played a key role to the workforce, seeing their leadership calm and under control, which I think helped build trust of that everything we're doing in this pandemic, where they're feeling the comfort and safety for their own well-being. And from one other thing we've done is the personal touch has extended more so to above and beyond training, taking onboarding to even expanding a couple extra weeks, adding or training to the individuals, and just reassuring protocols that we believe in for the health and safety of the employee and the product.
So So for Nation, the last few months have been challenging for our employees as they have to balance, work and home responsibilities. So we realized that we needed to be a little more flexible with certain things to help them. But at the same time, for the folks that had to be here every day, day in, day out, including the weekends, it was great to see people coming in and going that extra mile. I think the group really came together as a team. In terms of recruiting, this has just made things a little bit more challenging on the recruiting front. So we've had to step it up even more, figure out how to train while maintaining our social distancing rules. So we're taking advantage of, video and teleconferencing. We utilize Alchemy and other forms of electronic communication. We got banners and flat screens and iPads out on the floor. We're able to send out messages and that were pertinent to what was going on. And we also, where we could, we would hold small huddles to communicate and bring people together.
You had to get creative, it sounds like. One more question about labor in your workforce. That discussion often goes hand in hand with the discussion about automation. So with everything you've experienced recently, have your thoughts on labor and automation changed?
Not really. I believe automation has been here since before pandemic hit, right? Some processes allow it and others not. It will depend on many factors. How flexible and complex your processes are or want it to be. That's one. But at the end of the day, it is about finding the perfect equation in terms of safety, productivity, quality, and how well they are aligned to your strategic plans.
Emily, the pandemic hasn't changed our view on automation. It's still valuable and critical to our future plans. One thing it's made us probably, as we go into our next projects, we'll probably look at them through a different lens, where we're looking at touch points and things like that, and how cleanable are the things that the employees have to interact with. But also, the pandemic highlighted, and I know this goes without saying, but the reliability of automation, what level of service is needed, and also it also highlights the value of having remote access by the vendors. I hope we never go through this again, but those things are critical, especially when people are not allowed to come into our facilities.
Brandon, thank you on the comment on the touch points. That's one point that is going to plays a very important part of our growth and expansion that I need to add into my scope with the situation going on today. Because as we as a company are in a growth mode and are in capital projects as we speak, and looking at additional ones for the first quarter of 2021, and looking at the touch points situation was one I've not thought of, but our focus on that has not changed, and the importance about about the automation. We're not specifically looking at the touch points to eliminate much labor. It's really more about efficiency, throughput, and increase pieces per man hour. So it's a win-win for us.
At Nation, our views on labor and automation haven't changed. Being a contract manufacturer, we're always looking at the opportunities and looking at ways to automate and operate with less labor.
Sure, sure. A policy question, and it's good to see we have some questions coming in from the audience. So we will fold those in here in a few minutes. But a lot of policies have had to change, as you've mentioned. And one of those is about sales representatives and other suppliers being allowed in your facilities. So can you tell us about under what circumstances you are allowing suppliers to come into your facilities? And if they can't come in, are they offering you other creative ways to communicate?
So, for instance, non-essential projects have been placed on hold, but we are connected with our suppliers and partners very, very often. Some of them have offered troubleshooting online, for instance, right, or guidance in Zoom meetings or webinars. But if something is needed that is considered essential to the operation, we have implemented a special protocol that includes a health questionnaire and temperature screening at the point of entrance. So, of course, if something can be done remotely, we will opt for that choice first.
Okay.
Yeah, Emily, obviously we haven't had any visits by suppliers, and we're starting to have visits of suppliers in the future where things are more critical. We've done the video conferences, the phone calls, but I really think, as was just mentioned, all of our companies have the right procedures and protocols in place to ensure the safety of the visitors and our employees when they're here. I think that part of the hesitation over the last, at least in our company, in the last month or so, has really been more about trying not to take our focus away from dealing with the pandemic, not necessarily the safety of or the risk of having people in, because I believe we have the right procedures. But I do think that we need to get back to that because, like we've mentioned we need to get back to the visits because, like we've mentioned previously, we put a lot of things on hold, and we want to prevent as much lag as possible in moving forward with our plans, and that's hard to do. Phone calls and video calls are great, but the face-to-face interaction, I don't think you can replace that and get the same value. So we're getting back to it slowly and surely.
Okay.
From the bakery company's perspective, it's important to note here that we're fortunate to be buying equipment from members of BEMA and people that sell equipment on a global basis. And obviously, it's a world pandemic that we're dealing with, and all of our equipment manufacturers are dealing with this as much as we are, and completely understand what we're dealing with at the operation. So just like them and their operations, I'm sure they have restricted visitors and so forth. So the one thing we have done is with the questionnaires, that before they come in, asking specific questions to each visitor, but we have limited to no visitors unless it was completely essential and important. Those being equipment installations. Fortunately and unfortunately, through this, we've had some installs, but thankfully through those installs, everybody was maintained safe and healthy, and continued to be healthy.
Okay. Vince, how about you?
What we're doing at Nation is similar to what others have said. We allow OEMs, fabricators, and other services in the plant that are critical to the business and the manufacturing line. Everyone that is coming in has to follow the same protocol that our employees are following prior to entering the building. So that's worked for us. And as time moves on, we'll relax some of those, some of that, and allow more folks in. All other meetings or visits or things like that are being done via video and teleconferencing, and of course, emails, texts, things like that.
The landscape has changed quite a bit, and I'm going to ask just a broad question. With all of these changes that we've seen throughout the industry, are you seeing any new opportunities being created?
Yeah, I think I see opportunities in two main areas. So one will be the labor part. How do we hire? How do we train? How do we retain people? How do we do it in an effective way, ensuring social distancing? And something that Brandon just mentioned, keeping the connection is important, right? So how do we achieve both? So that's one. But let me tell you, we are getting very creative at these tasks, but we are still learning. And the second one is the strategic work ahead of us. How do we, for instance, how do we reach more point of sales on the current challenges, right? How do we continue channel expansions? How do we do product innovation and continue with the new formats to serve new channels and markets? So I would think that strategic work, the end goal is the same, but we will have to be the tactical portion and the execution. We have to be twisted to meet those new challenges that we have still and that we will continue to face.
Emily, at Roskam, just internally, this working from home for our office staff, we've got a pretty, over our facilities, a large number of people that are administrative staff, and it's really opened our eyes to some of the things that we were doing that probably weren't adding the value that we thought they were, because we've stopped doing them, and we're still just moving right along. So we're really going to take a look at that. But as far as the industry landscape, we have seen opportunities come up that we may not have been made aware of before. Unfortunately, not every manufacturer has fared as well as most of us. So we're getting opportunities, whether it be a backup supplier opportunity or a short-term opportunity or even long-term opportunity. So that we are seeing that. Those opportunities come up that we probably would not have had outside of the pandemic.
The opportunities that we see has really come around having diversification and product flexibility. What I mean by flexibility is really about product to go to market, with whether it's individually wrapped or in a container per se for food safety precautions.
But Fed Nation, as a company and as leaders, it further reinforces the need to cross-train and also to communicate to our employees, letting them know that they're valued here. We've learned that, especially during these times, everyone wants to feel like the company is doing their part, helping keep them safe. I think that for those that were working from home or that are working from home, it has actually helped with the communication side of things, and in some cases has helped us become a little more productive.
That's an interesting point, Vince, because I know at the beginning, if we did the look back 90 days, a lot of people were very worried about communicating remotely and all of the working from home. And I think it's been interesting to sort of watch the tide turn on that topic as we have these discussions. One more question that was submitted previously, and then we will switch over to the questions that are coming in live. So What's the forecast for capital projects?
So for us, capital projects will continue to be identified based on return over the investment, of course. I don't see a change there. However, as we plan our 2021 and beyond, some additions will definitely be added to the scope to ensure the safety of our associates as we adapt to the new normal. Like, for instance, automated temperature controls at the point of entrance, and improvement in our sanitation practices. That's something that I see for sure investment in the short term.
Out just because of the time period that we had to focus on other things. We've got a few projects that were tied to some of the businesses that are down in volume, so we'll obviously hold or see what happens there. But the other projects that we have, we're getting back on track and moving forward with all those.
At the bakery companies, we are staying the course. We've entered a few new product categories recently in the last 60 days, and we're investing additional capital to expand our capabilities and capacity, and along with some of our core items today. So we're staying the course.
And at Nation, our current capital projects will continue to move forward as planned. As we continue to grow and as the business changes, we're always looking for opportunities that impact, particularly impact safety, quality, and productivity, of course.
Sounds like we have consensus on that one. Capital projects are moving forward. Okay, so we have some great questions coming in from our audience today. So, Xochitl, this first one is a follow-up to your conversation about innovation and a focus on operation and employees. Do you believe innovation internally and with vendors is down because of the focus on everything else right now?
No, not actually. I see it the opposite. I think with these new challenges that we have seen, they are turning into opportunities. So now the question is, how do we go faster, right? How do we innovate faster to meet that? Now we see more families sitting at the table, having dinner, cooking at home, that we didn't see before, right? So that is innovation that is going to create new formats, new presentations. So I see it no like a separate, but more like how do we merge it to meet that new demand, a new niche that now is surging back again.
Okay. I'm going to follow up another question that is somewhat related to innovation and from the audience, and any of you, of course, are welcome to answer. So Clay Miller's interested to hear opinions on different ways to keep your sales, R&D, and marketing teams focused on innovation and creativity during all the chaos and distraction.
That's a really good question. We've seen the opposite of what Xochitl said. We had some innovation with our customers that had began, and obviously it's different markets, but and those were put on hold just in an effort to make as much volume as we could. Yeah, Clay, I don't know a good answer to that, but I think it's critical to get them refocused on innovation, because I do think that's obviously extremely important for growth.
Yeah, I will add to that, Brandon, that as we see the strategic work for 2021 and beyond that, and we think about capital projects, we have to consider, and we should consider that innovation pipeline ahead of us, right? Is something that needs to be embedded in all the strategic work. But that's a great question, Clay.
If you don't mind,
There's another
add,
question. Of course.
I think what's wonderful about that question is really the art of listening. When you bring all different departments together in the forefront of innovation and sales and operations, I think it comes back to practicing how well we listen to adapt and be able to move forward and make progress.
Thank you. Next audience question is, how are companies addressing new product introductions in 2020? Are you waiting until 2021? And how are you trying not to lose much momentum?
Well, from Nation's perspective, new product introductions in 2020 are moving ahead as planned. But at the same time, it's also allowed us to look at, or helped us look at, SKU rationalization on some of the items that were probably not in, probably not worth running, or just the volumes were there or would impact throughput. But in terms of new product launches, those have been continued to move forward.
Yeah, I would like to that, Emily, and I think, Brandon, you mentioned this. When we got hit with the pandemic, right, and we were going through these difficult times, a lot of we were trying to do, of course, serve the market, and with that came SKU rationalization as well. And we tried to eliminate or reduce the complexity at the bakery level, meaning less changeovers, and in that regard, we put on hold some of the product launches or innovation. But I think now that we are in a more stable and sustaining phase, we are incorporated back those to our timeline.
Okay. A follow-up question really related to products is, did the high demand of a certain product surprise you? A snack, a certain pizza, a particular sweet good?
Yeah,
Emily,
I
don't. In our business, thank you. I won't say that it surprised us. I think that there's probably other people on the call that can answer this better. It was, nice to see people eating together and buying things at the grocery store. We saw a drop in our business in the convenience area, but probably not just one specific item from our perspective.
Okay. The questions are still rolling in. I'm going to jump to a question from Barry. What changes, if any, have you made to the cleaning and sanitizing of your actual production equipment?
Emily, we're wiping down touch points, touch screens, parts that need to be handled with individuals' hands. We're wiping those down at a minimum once per shift. And I think Yianny or somebody mentioned it earlier, the door handles, desk, computer monitor, or keyboards, those things are being locked down, once per shift.
At Nation, a lot of the same things. We've increased frequency of the high touch point areas. We've added operators to doors, so touchless operators, so that people don't have to, less handling of door handles and things like that. Out on the production floor, a lot of what we were using was sufficient, and the frequencies were in line with what we needed to achieve.
Okay. Next question is from Ken, and his question is, are you concerned over knowing what the new normal will be between retail versus the food service market?
Emily, I am not concerned what the new norm is. I think we've all adapted and are learning and have learned what we're being dealt with, and we're able to adjust and be able to enter these markets with the new norms. So I think the important part on that is about flexibility as an operation and as an organization of being able and to adapt and enter these markets with the new expectations.
Okay. We have 3 questions, and I think we can get them all in. So how do you see the role and position of R&D in these challenging times when production is dominant?
I think, Emily, it's about how solid our plans are and how do we execute them. A lot of work can be done remotely. However, as we see the future and we start opening back states and we are changing and adjusting and documenting protocols, R&D is a big role of who we are and what we do. So of course they have to be part of these processes, right? And join and following all the safety protocols. And I don't see an issue, and I don't see any concern why we cannot deliver upon those plans.
Okay. Let's see. What long-term effect do you expect this pandemic to have on the consumption of bakery products?
I think if anything, it's going to grow or improve the consumption of bakery products. I think a lot of people are baking at home now that weren't in the past, and I don't know. I can't predict how long that'll last, but I think it's a definitely. It sounds odd, but a good thing for the baking industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon, and I think we have to watch it, right? Me as a mom, I switched completely to online grocery shopping. So I will be very interested to see how e-commerce is going to play a big role now in our products, right? How do we do we have to change formats to be able that we can play in that channel, which is growing so much? I think it's going to be very interesting, for sure.
Okay, we are down to the wire, so I'm going to ask our last question from the audience, and I saved it because it sort of wraps up a lot of things that you've talked about on the call today, with putting your associates first and just their health and safety. And Rob Mackey asked, how helpful has the industry efforts to recognize the frontline employees what impact has that had to the morale on the plant floor?
I think that's a great question. And I have to say, Emily, that the support that we have had from all the baking members, it has been outstanding, and it's felt in the floor, and I couldn't be more proud of being part of this baking industry, of course. And I think even Rob calls them the unsung heroes, and I totally agree with that. As we see our bakers and our frontline associates, they will tell you they are proud of what they do, and I think even through these challenging times, we are doing a very, very good job serving the customer, and they are very proud of what they do. So I think the recognition and support that we have had has been amazing. So thank you for that.
Any other final comments from any of our panelists before we say goodbye for the day? Well, I want to thank you for your time. We certainly filled the entire hour with great information. I know that the audience learned and enjoyed the conversation. This conversation will be available on demand, so if you missed it or want to tune back in, that is a possibility. And from the staff and all of the board of directors at BEMA, we thank you for being part of our first virtual convention, and hope you'll join us back tomorrow afternoon for a telethon. So have a great day, and thank you again.